the first message I sent. That one that says join the meeting or something. It's a link. You just click there, it takes you straight in. Otherwise, yes, the Zoom one. No. Those ones in about YouTube, they are for your friends. There's a message I sent before. We must go live. The first message I sent, it's got a link, and then it's got a password and a meeting ID. So if you just click on the you see, if you the first message, the one that has got a link, then I don't know, Doc. I need to get back to the camera. Yeah. But the first message I sent to you, there's a link there. The other 4 that I sent are for your friends. So yes. So the link or using the meeting ID and the password. So you can use either on the first message. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Dr. Fundi platform. Today, I'm expecting 2 guests. I had advertised 1 guest, Dr. Mfanelo Titus. I've also invited a second guest, Dr. Viwe Ekak. Now, they are both from the Eastern Cape. They are both in the thick of things in terms of responding to the pandemic there. And so whilst we are going to hear the testimony from Dr. Titus, but we'll also look broadly at how the epidemic or the pandemic is progressing within the province. So we just need to give them a few minutes. I can see that Dr. Nogaga is here, but Dr. Titus is not yet here. So he will join us. As soon as he joins us, I will introduce him. And once I've introduced him, then we will get to his testimony. So please be patient with us. And the reason why we scheduled this broadcast today is that we have been hearing a lot about the Eastern Cape following what has been happening in the Western Cape. As we all know that the Western Cape is a province that for the past month or so has been experiencing a lot of the COVID-19 pandemic. And just behind it, it's been the Eastern Cape and Gauteng, and they've been sort of competing, in terms of who has the most numbers. Now, the numbers in both Gauteng and the Eastern Cape are actually rising rapidly. Gauteng is now at number 2 in terms of the numbers. For those people who don't have or have not seen the latest numbers, the total number for the country is 187,977. And that was an increase of about 10,853 overnight. And of those with active infection are 93,724, and those who have recovered is 91,227. What that means is that there's more people with active infection than those who have recovered. And when we look in terms of the provinces, and my focus is on the 4 provinces, Western Cape, Gauteng, Eastern Cape, and KZN. 68,376 are the cases from the Western Cape. 59,373 are the cases from Gauteng. The Eastern Cape is at number 3 at 34,161 cases. And KZN is at number 4 at 13,984. So what you can see now is that Gauteng is closing the gap, between itself and the Western Cape. The difference is just about, 9,000. And when we then look also in terms of the deaths, the total deaths in the country, there's 3,026 deaths in the country, of which 2,026 are from the Western Cape, followed by the Eastern Cape at 490, followed by Gauteng at 282, followed by KZN at 162, and lastly, Mpumalanga at 36. So I just took the top 5. So whether you look at the total number of cases or you are looking at the deaths, the Eastern Cape is featuring in the top 3. It is number 3 in terms of the total number of cases. It's number 2 in terms of the total number of deaths. And the numbers are rapidly increasing, both in terms of confirmed cases and also in terms of the deaths. When one also looks at the infections per 100,000 population, Western Cape is leading at about 999.03, followed by Eastern Cape at 508.93, followed by Gauteng at 391.23, followed by Northwest at 140.15, and followed by KZN. So again, the Eastern Cape is featuring in the top 3 in terms of the load of cases per 100,000, confirmed cases. And when we also look at the number of tests that have been done, in the various provinces per 100,000 population, Western Cape have actually, tested more people per 100,000 at 4,933, followed by Gauteng at 3,828, followed by, the Eastern Cape, at 3,154, followed by Free State at 3,061, and followed by KZN. So the picture I've been trying to paint, it's a picture that the Eastern Cape province, which is my home province, is actually starting to get to a serious challenge in terms of the number of cases, whether you're looking at the total number of cases or that is confirmed cases, or the deaths, or the infections per 100,000, and also the tests that have been done per 100,000. They have moved up a little bit. They used to be number 5 in terms of the number of tests per 100,000. They are now at number 3. So it means there is some progress there. My guests have arrived, so I'm going to welcome them. I've got 2 guests here. I've got Dr. Mfanelo Titus. We normally call him Veku, he's an old friend of mine and my big brother. I've known him for decades. He qualified at Medunsa. It was still called Medunsa those days. But before then, he did a BSc at the University of Forte. He will tell us what he does in the Eastern Cape. Dr. Titus, welcome.
Thank you, Bele. Let me take this opportunity to thank you for the opportunity of being your guest in your show. I know your shows have become very popular lately, and I've been following you as well on social media. Yeah. So I thank you for hosting me, Bele. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have Dr. Viwe Nogaga. Now, as I was talking to Dr. Nogaga, Dr. Titus, he told me that He knows you very well. You guys were at Medunsa at the same time. Now, Dr. Viwe Nogaga is a plastic reconstructive and aesthetic surgeon based in Umtata. He did his MPCHP also at Medunsa. So you can see that these are people who qualified long time ago before it was changed to Sefako Makato, you know. So Dr. Nogaga got his MPCHP from Medunsa, and then he went further to study, as a registrar in reconstructive and aesthetic surgery with Wits University. And he qualified as a specialist last year, and he has gone to Umtata to be a reconstructive and aesthetic surgeon there. Dr. Nogaga, welcome to the Dr. Fundi channel.
Thank you, Dr. Fundile. Atebele. Thank you for hosting me. This is a great opportunity for our viewers to have people that are able to give them more information and to alleviate the fears that we're having as we fighting this invisible enemy. So I wish I'll be available. I'll be a valuable guest in your show. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you very much, Doc, for agreeing to join us at short notice. And I've brought both of you in for two reasons. One, for Dr. Titus, I don't know what has happened to him now. He seems to have dropped. But for Dr. Titus, he has recently recovered from a COVID-19 disease. So I want him to share his journey about that. But at the same time, I want us to also look broadly at the pandemic, how it's progressing, especially in the Eastern Cape. And towards the end, we look at what is it that needs to be done or done differently, because it seems like things are getting worse in terms of the infections on the ground, in terms of the number of deaths. We seem to be seeing a problem there. So that's the two things. So the first part of our show, we will just talk, focusing on Dr. Titus and his, brush up with COVID-19. But the second part of our discussion will now look at broadly the Eastern Cape province, the 8 districts that are there. How are things going? What is going, well? What is not going well broadly? And what is it that the different stakeholders within the province need to do? And when I say stakeholders, because the focus has been only on government. What is government doing? Yes, primary responsibility for service delivery is with the government. But one also needs to look at what is the role of communities. What is the role of local authorities? What is the role of traditional councils? What is the role of community radio stations, in and around the Eastern Cape? So we will get to that. That's the second part. But the initial part is just to hear, from Dr. Titus. But before I get to Dr. Titus, Dr. Nogaga,
yes.
When you came in, I was going through the latest stats around COVID-19 in your province. And I was trying to show that the Eastern Cape is featuring in the top 3, whether we're looking at the total number of cases, where it is number 3, or we're looking at the deaths, where 490 people have died and it's number 2 there, or we're looking at the load per 100,000 population, where it is at 508.93. Clearly, you can't be in the top 3 for nothing. Something is happening. Something is making those numbers to go up. just what is your sense of what's happening in the province?
It's saddening to acknowledge that the fact that our people are in trouble. As much as I'm not a COVID specialist, I'm a plastic surgeon, but I happen to devote my time, my free time into COVID, and went to households, to people, to leaders, and tested different types of people, and I've sensed that information is
Lacking.
is lacking. It's not as we would have loved to give people. People, some of them, they don't attach themselves into this pandemic. They think it's something that is far away, and also the problem of stigma.
Yes.
It's a stigma. I think people have stigmatized it such that they will come in sometimes late in terms of death. They'll come in sometimes late to healthcare systems. I will not talk about the proximity of proper healthcare systems for now, because
No, let's leave that, because we have addressed that a few weeks ago.
Yes, but the fact is, people have a lack of information on what is like. How do you really avoid COVID? Talking about responsibility, it's a very strong statement. People are irresponsible, but we're not saying that. It might be because of information, but we still not getting it that COVID is a problem.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Doc. So you are basically confirming that there is a problem, and the level of awareness on the ground in terms of people taking this thing seriously seems to be a challenge. There's a lot of myths.
Yes.
There's lots of misinformation, and there doesn't seem to be enough information sharing on the ground. Let's park it there. Let's park it there, Doc. Let's get to Dr. Titus. Can I call you Mvegu?
Yeah.
No, carry on.
All right. All right. All right, Doc. Maskestet, just unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. I want us to have a discussion here. At least there's 3 of us, so I don't expect any problems. Now, Doc, I got to know that you were also a statistic of confirmed cases. When I saw a post that was posted by Mr. Gift Ngondi, who is the spokesperson for the ANC in the province. And I was like, hi, boo, I had just, made contact with you and you never mentioned anything. But obviously, coming from that source, I knew that it was true. And I thought, okay, I'm going to give you a chance to recover. And as soon as you recover, I want to talk to you. And the reason why I want to talk to you, is the fact that there are certain lessons that as a country we learned during the height of the HIV and AIDS pandemic. And one of those lessons is that even if information is available, but information does not always result in change in behavior. Sometimes you need somebody who has gone through or who is living with that health challenge to actually say, I'm not only a doctor, but I've actually experienced COVID. And I can tell you now firsthand, not from the books, that COVID is there. And this is how, I dealt with it. So that's an angle that is relatively new in our awareness, because before there were fewer cases, so we were talking theory. So I've invited you specifically to give testimony, a quick testimony, to say this thing does not discriminate. You may have your MPCHB, or you may not have even a matric, or not have any schooling. It can hit anybody. So that is the purpose, Dr. Nokaka, why I wanted him to be here, to basically put a face to COVID, because other people are saying, I've not seen anybody who says they've got COVID. So this is a lie, and there's so many conspiracy theories on social media, about COVID. So having somebody who actually has lived through it is more powerful than Dr. Nyati just talking about it. So Veku, please quickly, for the next 20 minutes or so, I want us to go into your story. We'll be noting some things. And Dr. Nokaka, where you feel you want to come in, please come in and ask him questions too. You ask him questions. He needs to tell us what he went through. He needs to tell us. So, Doc, when did you get to know that you've got COVID, or what made you even think that you might be having COVID?
Yeah, thanks, Pele. Mhlawumbe mandibulise no viewer. Doc, Dr. Nokaka, hi. Yeah, last saw you ages ago. Yeah, as probably you know, Pele, I am a practicing GP kule area yase-Sterkspruit nase Alwal North. In fact, I've got 2 practices in both towns. I also do some, sessional work. Incidentally, I'm in one of the hospitals that I actually do some, sessional work at. Unfortunately, I didn't know before we had our chat, Bele, that I would be here. I thought I would be, lazing around at home since it was my birthday on Friday.
Oh,
but
wow.
Bele, thank you, Bele. Coming to your question, on the 27th, that is when 26th of May, that is when I decided to test for the first time. And I think, it was important for me to test because we were seeing quite a number of patients that turned out to be positive. Now, obviously, one was then in contact with patients who were COVID infected. And I needed to know my status as well in the process. So on the 26th—
So you didn't have any symptoms?
No. Not on the 26th, Bele, because then I tested again on the 2nd of June. And on that particular day, after having tested, this is now in the evening, and incidentally, I was on standby at one of the hospitals again, and I experienced the symptoms of, I had a severe headache, and lower back pain, severe lower back pain. I started having all these chills. I ran a fever and joint pains. But I didn't have much of the respiratory tract symptoms until later. And so that is when I suspected, and mind you, it was after, in fact, I had tested on that earlier that day that I experienced these symptoms. So then I knew, from that time that it might be that I am having, COVID.
Yes.
Yeah, so that is in short, you know, I was not driven to test because of symptoms, but it was more on
Suspicion from exposure.
yes, yeah.
All right.
And
And the
also,
first test came out
yeah,
negative.
first test on the 26th was negative, and the second test, I got my results on the 4th. They were positive. And just on that, Bele, on the 3rd, you know, I went and slept the whole day of the 3rd. After, you know, because I couldn't sleep, you know, with all what was happening.
Yeah.
I took, obviously, antipyretic medication. That is, I took Panadol, and I took diclofenac, and I thought, okay, fine, I'm going to observe this. The following day, I was feeling much better, you know, when I woke up. And I remember saying, hey, maybe let me go and work. Maybe these results are just, you know, going to be negative. Denial, obviously. But
Yes.
I said, you know, because I felt those symptoms, let me stay put and wait for the results.
I was
And
about to ask
yeah.
if there was any quarantine there at home in the bedroom.
You know, I got my results, Bene, on the 4th
Yeah.
of June. And you know, because I actually have, you know, had tested at my practice, so the results will come through my email, and
Yeah.
bingo, it was positive. So I had to tell everyone at you know, at home that, look, I've tested positive. Also, I had to be responsible and tell all the people that I had contact with in the past 7 days that,
Yeah.
you know, guys, this is what is happening. You know, the patients had to be, you know, traced. All the patients that I had seen previous, you know, my friends, incidentally, some of them were, you know, were also showing signs. They went and tested and were positive. You know,
Yeah.
I know one friend of mine whom we had in interaction, you know, the weekend, who I actually had to phone and I said, hey, you better go and test because I'm positive. And unfortunately, he was also positive. So it spread like that, and I had to isolate at home, fortunately. And I'm saying fortunately because I think the mental, you know, state that one was at when I found that I was positive, and needed me to have some sort of support, and obviously being at home was that support I think I needed. You know, they would be calling, you know, outside the room that I was actually, you know,
Occupying.
isolated in. At least, you know, I could hear voices. I can imagine if I was, you know, isolated alone in a remote place, you know, it would have actually worked on my mind. Yeah.
Yes. Now the question I have, Doc, have you thought, Uguti, is this as a result of exposure in the course of your work, or it might have been maybe in your social, you know, limited social interaction? Obviously, the risk is much higher, you know, in the work that you do, but just thinking about it.
You know, even though I cannot pinpoint of the time or the place, but I am absolutely sure that it was, you know, during executing my duties. I'll tell you why. You know, on the previous week, I had a lot of patients that were coming in from one of the police stations that was, you know, closed as a result of having a single, you know, infection. So there was a lot of influx of PUIs, what we are calling PUIs, because they
People
were
under
primary
investigation.
contacts of, yes, they were primary contacts of that individual patient. So in the process, because you have to don and doff, your PPEs, I suspect that I may have, infected myself while doing, changing in between patients.
Yes. In fact, I was going to ask you that question, that did you not have PPEs? Now you've answered me. You had PPEs. However, the possibility of human error as you are putting them on and as you are putting them off, because there is a way to do that such that you don't contaminate yourself. So you think something around there must have been some human error that may have then led to you being infected with the very PPEs that were supposed to protect you.
Precisely, Ben.
Yes.
I think this is very important for all healthcare workers. We might be having these PPEs and for us to use at our disposal to use, but if we do not use them properly, we may, defeat the purpose of the very same PPEs that we're using. So I'm saying, yes, it's possibly human error that could have caused it.
Yes. Dr. Nokaka, can you unmute yourself? I muted you there. Can you unmute yourself? Right.
Yeah. And Bele, in that point, instead of pointing fingers on availability of PPEs, and yes, proper use is important. What is important also is the number of patients that are sick. The number of patients that are coming into our centers makes it extremely impossible for us to make. I'll give you an example. I'm a surgeon. If a person comes in, stabbed in a stab heart, I cannot be wasting 3 minutes of his life trying to wear properly instead of going to theater immediately to save his life. So the issue is, if our hospitals can be deloaded and our surgeries can be deloaded, and in our communities can be more responsible in trying to avoid being sick. I will put it crudely like that. It will reduce the chances of overburdening a human being who is a doctor and or a nurse. Because, I mean, if you're seeing 50 or 100 patients a day, it's impossible for you to function properly and observe all the necessary precautions. I don't care whether you're in public sector or in private sector. Yes. It's impossible. So we need to be responsible. We need to work with doctors. We need communities. We need our leaders, meaning your inkosi, abantu who are educated in their communities. I was talking to different families. People, abantwana baba baseGoli base engineers.
Yeah.
They helping very well in telling their parents, in telling their siblings not to go to town to prevent into basi overwhelm. At the end of the day, it's unavoidable if we have numbers. This is a number game. This is an illness that will spread because of numbers, not because, okay, we can keep sorry
yes,
to take your statement.
Yes, no. But it's a good point that you are making, Doc, to say if the numbers are reasonable, it's possible to observe all the precautions. However,
Yes.
if the numbers are abnormally high, then you start to drop some balls in terms of, following strictly, the
Yes,
preventative
yes.
measures as a frontline doctor, because sometimes it's a life, issue, like you said, step hard. Do you waste 5 minutes looking for PPEs, or do you go and try and make things happen? So yes, so yeah, Dr. Beck. So you told your family and you told your colleagues. I want to know, in the workplace, what was the reception of the news by those you are working with? And I'm asking this because even amongst doctors, the level of stigma amongst those who have tested positive is also there. We normally say stigma is as a result of ignorance, but even the ones who are actually knowledgeable about the illness, when it is my work colleague who's actually positive, you'll find that the medical brain stops, and they just become like any other person and have fears, sometimes irrational fears. So I just want to know, what was the experience from your colleagues?
Yeah, Bella, remembering that on that day, on the 2nd, I was, doing my sessional work at one of the hospitals. And when I communicated this to the hospital CEO, there was obvious, I could palpate the fear and the panic that she was going through. To an extent, coming back to the hospital itself, I could sense, being looked at with those eyes, those eyes.
Are you talking about post 14 days isolation?
That is post, but yeah, that is post, because during the time I told them, there was obvious panic. At my practice, doc, obviously we had to close the practices, both of them, and do the decontamination and so on. Which was done, and unfortunately the other one took a little longer than the other one, because the other one had nurses that were already trained in decontamination. So they actually just took it upon themselves to actually go through the process. Bearing in mind that previously, that is a week previous to that, I had to decontaminate because there were a number of patients that were presented and were positive.
And it's a costly exercise, by the way.
It is very costly. It is very costly, Bella. I must admit.
Yeah, Dr. Nokaga. Yeah, Dr. Nokaga. I just want to, just to get your sense as well. Have you picked up any stigma, amongst colleagues, healthcare workers, when one of the colleagues has tested, positive?
Unfortunately, I've been people who tested, for instance, I'll proudly say the first COVID death I tested in my hospital. I'm the one who tested the patient. And after that, when people knew that I was in contact with him or her, anytime when I go in any ward or in any admin area, they'll run away. They will not accept being next to me. And I tested negative. I felt at some stage there's a need of saying, here's my results, saying negative. Soon after, people in my hospital wanted to be tested. Like it happened that people thought, then I'm the person who knows how to test as a plastic surgeon, and then who knows how to test. Then I tested people. Some of them were obviously positive. Some of them were negative. Now people were running away from, like when I come in, they say no, blah, blah, blah. But the issue, yeah, when I will joke about it, and say, yay, you don't know, probably I kissed your girlfriend 2 days ago. so joking, I won't do that. It's purely a joke. But people do not understand. They put stigma on this.
And these are people who are healthcare workers.
I'm telling you,
majority
specialists, doctors, nurses. I don't mind other people. When I thought about them, I thought, wow, our community is in trouble. When those cars, as figure Department of Health, in your place, zioni tester, zioni counselor, after zihambile ingxaki khona in your family, ingathi nenze nibulele umntu. You get what I'm saying? And the way to get this disease, I mean, we have, in fact, I consider myself lucky that I don't have it, or I never got symptoms suggesting of COVID. And sometimes I even wish I was because once you have it, chances zoba iqumbe phansi later are far less than me, than a person who never had.
So you want that you want to actually get exposure so that you can develop the immunity, so that you're no longer scared again.
If it was me, and my wife and kids were not listening, I'll say I'd rather have it now. And develop immunity, and hopefully it will not kill me like Mveku. And I know I'll be smiling all over. I'm not saying once you have it, you will never have it again. You will never be sick again. But you will have amajoni and enough to avoid indoba ufeyiyo. If I kumbanga phansi eqaleni, so I still live in fear. I still live in
so you actually envy Umfanelo that he has gone through it. Okay, let's get back to
symptoms are there.
Let's get back to Dr. Titus.
What he's saying, it reminds me of now, at some stage, and it's part of fear, Ben. It's part of fear, because going to work every day, knowing that, at some stage it's going to catch up with you, you are always fearful. It reminds me of Dr. Mbengashe, one of the meetings, SG, saying that, imagine it's a stadium, and everyone has to go through that gate, because wonke umuntu kufunekile edlulile kula gate, meaning, that
we will all get immunity at some point.
Yes, at some stage, which is what really, unfortunately, we should also be spreading. Yes, because the gate is small, we have to move in such a way that the gate. However, that is really about flattening the curve. The system would collapse. So we have to make it a point that Sipuma Gendlela, so that all those that survive at the end of the day, have survived. It might actually, seem, that is insensitive, but I think it's the reality, Ben.
But you see, Doc, now me and you are on the other side of 50, right? And if you look at the deaths to date, the peak is 60 to 69, followed by the 51 to 59. So me and you are in that high risk group. See, Dr. Nogaka, no, he's still a young man. You know, most probably he doesn't have some pre-existing, you know, chronic illnesses. Obviously, he's not going to share that. But just so for him, it's okay. You know, he's still young. But me and you, there may be one or two chronic illnesses that we're already living with. So now, so allowing everybody then to get the infection, it's okay, but there are those people who have got vulnerabilities, you know, because of their pre-existing illnesses, you know, and that's the worry. Otherwise, you know, the whole idea of herd immunity, you know, I actually subscribe to it as well. The only problem is that it's playing Russian roulette, because there are some people who, because of their pre-existing, you know, health challenges, they may not make it to the other side. So, Doc, so these symptoms, they came, you know, general body aches, you know, headaches, chills. But did you have any difficulties in breathing?
You know, Ben, the other symptoms then followed later, because you know, I then started having abdominal symptoms, you know, a running tummy, tummy ache, and I had a deep-seated chest pain that I wanted to ignore, which really didn't, you know, really bother me, you know, because I was always listening for, you know, my breathing, whether my breathing was still fine, because I mean, it has been always that you are going to have difficulties in breathing. So I was looking out for that, which is, I think, what made me most anxious, because it meant that I would, you know, you know, thinking that I'm not breathing. You know, it's really fear and anxiety, really. You know, that
was that anxiety based on the knowledge you have of what is likely to happen or what is possible?
Precisely, because at some stage present, you know, a shortness of breath. And I was actually awaiting it, because chest pain, deep-seated, you know, that was not very painful, but you know, it was there. So that is why I thought, you know, says and I had a shortness of breath. But
I just want to point out something though, for the benefit of the viewers, that your presentation was not the typical one, in that there was headaches and body pains and joint pains, not much of the sneezing, coughing, sore throat, all right? But something else that we are not talking much about, the fact that other people present with gastrointestinal symptoms, nausea, vomiting, especially diarrhea, you know, and whilst at it, other people will not have any of these things, but they will actually have a loss of sense of taste and a loss of sense of smell without any other symptoms. And so for the benefit of the viewers, I thought, let me just be opportunistic and just put that in to say, not everybody presents with sneezing, you know, sore throat, coughing. Other people may not have those things and just present with loss of taste, loss of smell, or, you know, have a problem of diarrhea, you know, and these symptoms we're mentioning were not highlighted before when this thing started, you know, here in South Africa around March, but literature that came through afterwards from the UK, for example, the Association of ENT Surgeons in the UK, they actually were the ones who described this issue of loss of sense of taste and loss of taste of sense of smell. And so it may not always come in the way that is described in the books. And so people must have a high index of suspicion.
Index of suspicion, yes.
Yes, and another colleague of ours.
I'm saying it came later, and I see a taste, because I did have that part of loss of taste to an extent that for a couple of days I did not eat because it was rubbery, whatever I was eating, because of loss of taste and smell, obviously, because they go hand in hand. But I had a variety really of these symptoms, but I was fortunate not to have the tightness of chest and so on.
Your mic, I don't know what's happening with your mic, Doc. Sometimes we lose you. Sometimes we can hear you properly.
Yeah, I think it's the joys of being in a rural area, Doc. I'm not sure of my network here,
Oh.
so bear with me. I had to migrate from I was actually connected to Vodacom. Now I am on Cell C. So
okay. No.
I might have to go back to Vodacom, but
no, it's fine. Let's keep it like that. So sure. Basically, you initially presented with atypical symptoms, and then there were more atypical symptoms that came. You never had any real difficulty in breathing. So one would say you fall within that 80% of people who would be classified to have mild infection. Mild in the sense that there was nothing that necessitated that you be admitted in hospital.
Sure.
But not that you didn't have symptoms and symptoms that were distressing on their own.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes. Yeah.
It's important to highlight lonto leyo ukuba a majority yabantu who test positive, they have either no symptoms or they have mild symptoms. So ukudiagnoswa with the COVID is not automatic. Once you've got the diagnosis, it means admission to hospital or it means death. Yes. Because when people get the news, that's the thing they think about. They think death. So death only happens in about 2% of people here in South Africa to date. Sure. In places like Italy, it went up to about 5%. But to date in South Africa, we have been fluctuating between 2.2 and at some point this week we're at about 1.7. So yes, there is, and the people who die usually are those with pre-existing, health challenges. Yeah. Doc Nogaga, is there anything you want to add as well at this point?
Yeah, at this point, agreeing with you. That's what I've been telling people that I've tested and people who have fears. Yes, the fact of the matter is some people might die. 2% will die. But as to who's the 2%, things like lifestyle changes, positive mind, are extremely, and information are extremely important. I don't want us to narrow this down on people who are dying as unhealthy individuals.
No. And I think we need to correct that as well.
I've seen
there are those who have perished without any pre-existing illnesses.
Yeah, without nothing. So the issue is how do you deal with it when you know you have it? That's
and how
very
soon
important.
Seek help?
How soon do you seek help? And how, do you have support system? Even a support system, even over the phone, that helps. As much as I'm not an immunologist, but a positive, or a psychologist, a positive mind works wonders. I mean, if you have a shoulder to lean on, it works wonders. This is a time to find yourself.
Yes.
And you find yourself to find positive things about you. When you test positive, you have 14 days to make sure that your life is going on a positive way. Find yourself, find people you love, find everything. And it works wonders with that, because this illness is mainly treated symptomatically, which means that there's absolutely no cure. Some of the people who are not fit enough to overcome it will perish. Some will be okay. And it's been proven that people with positivity, there's a good chance that they will survive. For now, let me.
Yes.
Hey.
Yes.
Okay, Doc, did you try umhlonyane there at home during your recovery?
Bele, yes, I ate the food, umhlonyane. And you know, I think Bele, whether it is in the mind or it really works, that's another thing. But we've been using umhlonyane, you know, since, you know, age immemorial. Ekhaya utata bethi ayifake nasemphungweni xa ine-flu. But I thought, you know, it is something, you know, to use, because ndinawo. So I took some and I did exactly that.
So you were steaming.
I was steaming. But I think, okay.
Yeah, let's hear Dr. Nokak.
Yes, come in, Dr. Nokak.
Okay, sorry to disturb them. When I'm counseling people, I'm telling you, every day, even now, their food. I'm zange and the tested positive and zan bene symptoms. The thing is, this thing is all in your mind. And secondly, kutiwa le virus iyaluboyika ubushushu. Yabona. Kutiwa iyaluboyika ubushushu. And the science behind that is akuqumba phansi if it needs in your body, meaning it depends on viral load. So by burning some, at least you're reducing the burden. That's my science behind. So being ufuta, I will call it ngono ndithi ustima, because abantu will misinterpret me by saying using traditional medication. So ufuta steaming.
Look, I think just talking about this issue, although the issue of umhlonyane or Artemisia afra, I think as people of this part of the world, we have done injustice to our heritage, in the sense that we, you know, I was talking to a professor from University of the Free State. He was my guest here, and he specializes in pharmacology and the study of indigenous, you know, plants, especially those with medicinal properties. I also interviewed another gentleman who is the head of, you know, indigenous knowledge systems within the Department of Science and Technology, Dr. Auk Chabalala. Both of them are basically saying we need to get these indigenous plants that we know for ages they've had benefit. You know, we can only call them remedies for now, but they are potentially medicinal properties as well. We need to research them, play the game that will make them to be accepted, meaning undergo the trials, you know, so that scientifically, you know, they can then be able to be proven. You know, I mean, as you both of you guys know, both of you know that a sibling to our mhlonyane here, which is in Madagascar and in China, you know, which is Artemisia annua. is
Yes.
actually now the one that is being used to the active ingredient, the artemisinin, is
Malaria
now
drug.
being used as first line for malaria. So first
Mm.
line for malaria is no longer about chloroquine and the
Yes.
and the mefloquine. It's now artemisinin containing drugs. Artemisinin coming from Artemisia annua, that is, the Asia and the Indian Ocean. So the point I'm trying to make, we need to take our indigenous meds, all right, those plants, subject them to science. And in fact, if we follow the right processes, and singakhawulezi singxame uku-announcer like eMadagascar, singekenzi trials, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and once we do that and we patent those things, it will go a long way towards making sure that the economy of this country goes up, because that's untapped wealth, which if we can just do the right thing, we could actually have indigenous pharmaceutical, industries that, just like China. In China, they are making a lot of money from the Chinese herbs, which is their indigenous medicines that they decided to research. But anyway, let me not talk too much. You are the guests. I'm the one who's supposed to be talking
Dr.
less.
Nyati, on that point, briefly on that point, ndicela kwi-viewers uthetha lento, it's very important. Yes, we agree uba umhlonyane uyasinceda, we agree on lanto. Into important indoba anything oyiselayo idigestwa and ipurifier esibindini. Do not overdose. Don't drink umhlonyane omninzi ngexesha elinye, because we do not know bizakwenzeka ntoni. So if we drink anything that is not proven, don't overdose it, because we don't know uba ingxaki ingaphi.
Maybe that's why it tastes bitter, so that you don't drink too much of it.
But then let me come in there, Bele. The Chinese have always kept their medicinal plants. They know their medicinal plants. They still use them, freely. And really, I think what you are saying becomes very important in that. Tina, it seems kufuneka kuqale kuze someone from outside to tell us, that these plants, have medicinal properties. I mean, take the case here, cannabis. Also, that we've had cannabis.
Especially as a
and now we are only now told that it could have medicinal properties. And I think that is the problem. I think we are failing ourselves. We should be having a band who are going to study this. I know there's a Professor Magwa who taught me botany at Forte, who does use or has been working with as the herbs. And I think those people, Abantu Abanja, should really study, the medicinal properties and publish them.
In fact, Doc, before I mentioned that I interviewed here with Dr. Auk Chabalala.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
With Dr. Auk Chabalala, he is the head of the IKS unit of government under science, and it used to be called science and technology, it's now called science and innovation. And that unit has been doing a lot of work over the last 5 years, proving, some of the indigenous plants. They've got those that are therapeutic, those are for nutritional purposes, those that are for cosmetology, purposes, and all of that. So there is an established unit now. The universities have to work with that unit, and they actually are taking people from a point of, working with the communities that bring these plants to a point where they help them as entrepreneurs to sell products that have been made from this. So we need more of that. All I have a problem with, though, is that let's not just see it with I know West is food is those, you know. Let's subject our things to research. We research them, follow the standards, and once we have ability to prove, then we patent and we make businesses from that. But anyway, so Doc, how long did your symptoms take?
I think it was just past the 10th day, when I really started feeling very, much better.
Yeah.
However, I didn't want to take any chances. I still continued taking my aspirin a day and my multivitamins and the food. So throughout until the last day. So I did isolate for 14 days. In fact, it was 15 because I only went to test on the 17th. That's when I came out on the 17th of June. And the results are Puma, the negative after that. However, I must say, that I've tested again, Doc, on the, I think it was Tuesday, on the 2nd. Is it on the 2nd or 31st? No, it was the 31st. I tested again. I'm still awaiting those results. And really, I am expecting them to be negative.
Yes.
But what if they are positive?
Yes.
They will have disproved a number of,
No. You see, there are two issues on what you're talking about. One, we generally would expect that your test becomes negative. All right.
Yes.
However, if you look at the the test that is being done, the PCR test, the polymerase chain reaction test, because it looks for antigens of the virus. So it doesn't always have to be the full virus. So there may be some leftover antigenic material in your system, which may make it to test positive. So, but it does not mean you actually have got a new infection.
No, sure. Yeah.
I mean, that's what the literature is saying.
But testing negative, then testing positive,
Yeah. Yes.
I think these are where I'm saying, science has to actually re-study all these.
The virus is new. It's hardly 6 months old. So we don't really, we still are learning a lot about it. Dr. Nogaka, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, yes. In this instance, 14 days is reasonably enough for you not to be infectious.
Yes.
And within a very short period of time, I'm not too sure. Well, I'll say if you can test positive in a short space of time, again, it might not be as infectious as remember, the test for now will not change nothing to you.
Yes.
It changes your ability to infect other people.
Yes.
That's a very important thing people don't understand.
In fact, what doctor did to go and test again to see if it's negative or not, it's not necessary. But maybe because he's privileged, he used that, but it's not necessary because remember, we have a shortage of testing kits in the country.
Yeah.
And because of that, do you do a test on Dr. Titus who has stayed for 14 days? Or do you use that test for somebody who has recently got new symptoms? Where you have to ration the resources. Then you will not do Dr. Titus because say 14 days yakhe akazukusulela muntu makabuye noma abantu asebenza nabo bazamjonga kanjani na, because you are not infectious
because it's very important and we're getting pressure. The problem is after 14 days, if you're still positive, then then what? Yeah, but
No, you're not infectious after 14 days.
If it is mainly for you to know uba awuzosulela abantwana bakho, your loved ones, your parents, your everybody. That's why we are testing. But in an ideal situation, if you're coughing, loss of taste, and all these, or some of these symptoms, you must treat yourself as positive. You don't need, according to me, you don't need to test. But now, how do you tell your family that go away for 14 days? You get what I'm saying? You need to don't.
You get some guys who will use that, just to go away from their houses. They will say,
but Doc,
that's as a
yeah, but I just want to find out something from you, Dr. Titus. Now, we've been talking more around the physical side of the illness, but studies that were done in China and also in the US, they show that there's a high levels of psychological impact, anxiety levels, and also depression amongst the general population as a result of the pandemic. Now, even though you know so much about illnesses and diseases, there must have been a point where you were fearing for your life. Can you just admit what were the kind of emotional things you went through, Doc, as you had just received those news?
Yeah, Doc. I don't think anyone ukhona umuntu wothi andigoyika ukufa I think everyone fears because we don't know what happens after death.
Yeah.
Yes, there was fear, Doc. I will admit, and it was fear of dying. Which was actually, it was, I thought it was real, and I needed to actually be mindful of the time when it comes.
Did you sort out your will? Talk to your bank manager to make sure that everything is sorted.
But I think Mhlambi, what Dr. Nogaka was saying about being positive is actually very important. You have to have a positive mind.
Yeah.
I am going to beat this.
Yes.
I think it was because of that, and also because of the fact that I had isolated at home. I had fully undermined a lot part because I can imagine had I been isolating somewhere very remote, I would probably, have collapsed or came out a bit, with psychotic symptoms of depression. Yeah, it's very important.
But now I also want to ask you something else, which is an area that as the medical people, we are not exploring enough as part of holistic interventions, which is the role of spirituality. Now, how many times did you pray and check the Bible and whatever in that 14 days so that you can get some hope?
I was praying consistently, I must say. I think I was closer to God during that 14 days than I've ever been. I think in fact, we were sharing with one of the friends that I infected, sharing that very same thought that, hey, and I thought of it, even beyond that, Doc, that perhaps we are not praying enough. And part of really our work should actually be encouraging our patients to be in touch with their spirituality.
Yes, irrespective of what it is, but whatever grounding they have.
Whatever it is, your spirituality is very important. And I think
one thing it gives
because
you,
yes,
it gives you hope, and it gives you meaning.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
It gives you meaning of life. Dr. Nokaka, you want to say something?
Yeah. On that point, this thing reminds me of when I first became a doctor, I think 2001, I was working in PE Provincial as intern. I had to put chest drain, and my seniors were nowhere to be found. And my experience was solely on observing as a student. But everybody was looking at me that should I be doing it? I prayed and prayed and prayed. Please go, God, give me answer, but I've never done it. I'm not confident, but give me
courage.
Give me power to do it. I've done it very well. To accelerate up until now, about 20 years, 19 years of being a doctor, before I go and operate on a difficult case, I pray. I have a please, God, give me wisdom and power to do things well. And I must tell you, my complications are mostly justifiable. Solely, I believe, solely because of that little prayer. I will agree with you that there's a spiritual world in all this.
We are spiritual beings.
Yeah, we are. Before we became doctors, we are human beings. We are spiritual beings. And as much as we might want to detach ourselves to science, but the question is, no, there's another spirituality of it. And one last point, when we were accepted as doctors, we will ask ourselves, they needed only 200 people or 100 people, and applicants were 100,000. They only choose you out of 100,000 applicants. You will ask yourself why. And don't fool yourself and think because you got an A, you got an B. There were 10,000 people who got a B or an A, but they chose you. Why? That's the spiritual part of it. And so, we should embrace that and work on it to help our people.
Yeah. You see, just to wrap up on this part I'm a family physician, so I did masters in family medicine. And when you are in that discipline, they emphasize what they call biopsychosocial approach, right? A holistic approach, meaning when you see a patient, look at the physical aspects, look at the psychological aspects, look at the social aspects, of that person, and treat that person as a whole. Now, that is what was the case when I was doing that was the thinking for 2001. At this point, in fact, around that same time, a gentleman by the name of Sumalski came up with a broader, scope, biopsychosocial spiritual, meaning added spirituality to UBPS, and since then, because he had been working with people who were terminal, with cancers and other things, and he found that there is a role of spirituality, in the total management of a patient. But you must not be judgmental as a doctor. Allow them to be grounded in whatever, because spirituality is beyond religion. Religion is part of spirituality, but not all spirituality is religion. So if to believe African spirituality, and it works for him, encourage them, as long as what they do is not going to conflict with what you do as a doctor, So I'm trying to say, in coping with even, being diagnosed with COVID-19, this is a time where people must reassess, a lot of things in their mind, a lot of things in their spirituality, and a lot of things in terms of relationships with themselves and people around them, you see. So, Doc, now that you have finished your 14 days and you are back at work, Are there still any niggling problems, or uphile qete ngoku?
I think, you know, as I think we were discussing, my symptoms really were very mild symptoms.
Yeah.
Mild, I think, you know, I was fortunate. And besides, I don't have any, you know, concomitant, you know, problems.
Yes.
So maybe that was also an added advantage, you know, over other patients that would, you know, be severely affected. So I'm saying no.
But but besides the support that you got at home, okay, how much support did you get elsewhere? Okay, you are more in private practice and you are doing sessions, you know, in the public sector. If you are in the public sector, I was full-time, I was going to ask you how much psychosocial support, but I won't ask you that because we part-time, you know, in the public health system. If you go Dr. Nokaka, bendiza kumbuza ukuba uThiloshni governor opha head office eBhisho, who's the head of employee health and wellness, uke wamhoyana, but ke you know, yeah. But anyway, let's now talk. You are now okay. You are happy. You are back at your work. Let's just, in the last 10 minutes that is left, let's just reflect now on Ipondo, the Eastern Cape, and the fact that the numbers are increasing exponentially, and the deaths are number 2 in the country. You know, the province has lost 490 people. 490. That's 10 away from 500, and the numbers are still going up. So now I want your wisdom. I know that the advisor to the MEC of Health is watching this interview. You know, so I want you guys to now tell me or tell the viewers what needs to be done differently to turn around the situation. Just 3 things you think, if these things zingenziwa kakuhle, we will be able to reverse this exponential curve. Uyabona? So ndizawuqala ngoDr. Nogaka, ndibuze nje into yokuqala nje iyi-1, ndibuyele kuwe kanjalo. So Dr. Nogaka, kakundiphe one thing that you think if kungahoywa lento kakhulu, it would make a big difference in the exponential rise that we are seeing in the Eastern Cape.
Mhlonishwa Dokotela, it's this is a difficult question. The rise is natural. It's almost impossible for our government to do much. Having said that, what I will say is extremely important is support.
What support?
When you support in terms of hope, like when they are there, when they're in media, when they are there, availability of support by healthcare professionals. I feel as healthcare professionals, we're not doing enough.
Support each other. I don't, but
to support the people by talking positively about this. You know, this talk, if it's listened by 100,000 people or by 50,000 people, I'm sure there's 5,000 who will have positive mind about it. We have less of these things. At the end of the day, we need our doctors, our GPs, our hospital doctors,
nurses,
to say, our nurses, to say something positive about this illness. I do not expect a person who's a health worker who will go and say, oh, government is not doing enough. Oh, government is not giving us this and that and that. Oh, government is not doing this and that and that. I'm not saying government is doing it. I'm not a government agent. I'm disgruntled also probably. But we can't show, this is not the time for us to show problems anger in public. This is a time for us to work for our parents, to work for our brothers and sisters, and show hope and show support and be available when they need someone to talk to. That's the bottom.
Just on that point, Doc, this morning you wrote, soldiers die in a war to save people from the enemy. Doctors and nurses are soldiers of this COVID. Some of us will be lost in the battle. In fear and in honor, we need to be there for our people, use our skills to support and save, if we can, our nation. Please find my WhatsApp number, Waibala, for public support in COVID distress, Mthatha and surrounding places only. We are soldiers. Let's do it, colleagues. So what made you to write this message, Doc, on Facebook?
I felt the pressure that this is bad. People are dying. People we know, people are close to us are dying. Not only they are dying, they are crying every day. Quality of life, like if we were to measure quality of life of individuals, it has been reduced drastically by COVID. People have no hope. When you test positive, when you cough, when you sneeze, when you do anything, your quality of life is never there. And all we need to improve quality of life is to give more information.
Yes. But what if Ogrihanabo, they have not been able to keep up with the new developments? Because remember, this is a disease that's only 6 months old, and there's new things that are happening, new information. So if one is not keeping up with information, they may not be able to give that hope.
As doctors, we are trained. We are trained to make sense of information, of disease management skills.
Yes.
You might not go deep. I'm a plastic surgeon. I'm not aware of COVID into depth, but I've got people who prefer to be tested and to be counseled by me in this COVID era, in this COVID, where
your virologist and your infectious disease specialist.
Those people, they know infectious diseases. They have friends to infectious disease specialists, to physicians, to family physicians. But the thing is, what I've learned over this period of time, that what is in a state of mind. If we can help our people to improve their state of mind, so we're probably going to win that. Get them, it is for prevention and for management.
Yes.
Going to hospital is not a solution.
Yeah.
For me, it's not a solution for me. But your well-being at home, your home situation, your biopsychosocial, your home situation, your peers, your people who look at you, your disclosure. There's a patient who was a non-paying patient who had difficulty in disclosure. I helped her in disclosing to the family. Guess what? Immediately thereafter, he improved drastically, and the family were grateful.
They are going to discriminate. and stigmatized.
Ibuhlungu into yokugula ungakwazi noxelela nomnye umuntu. Ibuhlungu into yokugula ublenywe. Ibuhlungu into yokugula ubone ingathi uyinto erongo. And that's something that makes you feel okay. I might as well die because I'm not important in life.
Yeah. Maybe where you are in Alwal North, it's a much better town than Engcobo, where you come from. All right. Now, let's talk about Engcobo. Engcobo is largely a rural town. One main street that is always congested nowadays. How do you convince the people Engcobo, that there is this thing called social distancing? They must wear their masks every day, cloth masks. They must wash their hands with water and the the green one. You don't have to go and buy an expensive soap or even it is disinfectant, and that people, if funerals go to 50 people, it means 50 people, because in the Eastern Cape, one of the key drivers of these infections has been clusters around funerals. What we see, Epai, Ezwite, Epai, Port St. John's, and a few other places. So how do you talk to Umtuapa Lalin, but Uti Bantu Bakuti, this thing is real? Can we observe? Because my brother who's in Tabase, says there people hear about this COVID, but they don't think it's something that will, affect them. Yet people are starting to die in my own rural village. So I'm asking you to put ahead of Engcobo, the largely rural town. How do you tell the people there, Uguti, guys, you need to change your behavior to save yourselves and save your families?
Yeah, thanks, Futs. I think mhlambi ke ndizaba kuba ndihlala kujog yale district ndihlala kuyo, that is Joe Gabi. Some of these issues, the issues that we are grappling with on a daily basis. Eastern Cape is a rural province. Leyo into, let us agree on. That's the first part. And okwesibini, Eastern Cape is a migrant base. South Africa. We've got migrant workers.
The labor reserve.
A labor reserve, exactly. So that on its own, Bele, has contributed, largely to COVID coming into the province. I remember.
COVID.
Yeah. So I'm saying, Bele, then we need to take also into consideration the socio-economic, position abantu base Eastern Cape abazifumanisa bekuyo. It's not, because by its nature, ifidwa, ngaba bantu basuka, from these provinces, No. Besides being xenophobic, I mean, we're not xenophobic.
I'm not saying in that sense.
Siyegoli siyofuna imisebenzi sibuye sithwele zobhafu ezithwele i-common kwisazikhumbula i-common ezaswiti kuthiwa zi-common. But I think what is important, Bele, is making our people aware.
How?
I-awareness programs to mhlawumbi azifikeleli where they should actually be.
Masiyenze njani?
Yes, I think foods, for instance, you know, we've been struggling with a particular area, for instance, which is Elundin, which is deeply rural.
Yeah.
And we've been struggling, you know, getting the information across to the people of those areas. Now it is important to involve INCOS, because
Yes.
INCOS are, you know, ngabona bantu bamanyelwayo in the main. But nalapho you will remember into regulations as sitting not more than 50 people can you know. Now we need to you know, assist as Nkosi somehow in reaching out to their people. And unfortunately, there are radio stations now as Sebens, but where there are radio stations, take the bosses, take the chiefs to the radio and let them talk about this. But Inkosi is a big position, and that information will filter through to our people. So it's
So
very.
you're saying there must be a strategy of empowering Inkosi.
You know,
sorry to interject. I agree, Inkosi, abafundisi, anyone othandwayo by i-community has to be. Umfundisi makangayigqibi service yongcwaba engatsho thethanga indoba about COVID and its dangers and all those things. Unyana osegule at the moment, or engineer, has to talk to umama wakhe and his siblings about importance of this. Unyana oyi accountant, unyana oyi intombi eyintoni engugqirha. So this is now everyone ofumene opportunity wabhatalelwa wafunda e-university nase-technical wafumana i-degree or diploma ngemali karhulumente, has to give back by talking to i-immediate family yakhe to avoid the COVID, including umfundisi, including Inkosi.
English, you see, but when we come back from Joburg, because we are no longer confident with this course, you know, Abba, and we are studying English when we get there, and then go abanye abantu abayiva kahle isingesi. Itwani lento. In need for we must speak in Venek so that I'm sure you even remember yourself when you were in medical school. There were times where, as the lecturer was lecturing, you start processing it in Xhosa, you know, English to Xhosa before it makes sense to your head. You know, I remember it used to be like that with me in some physiology or anatomy. So I'm just saying, at times there is value in speaking to people in the language and the cultural context, yabo. And some of the messaging that has been going through is generic, but not always relevant. For example, where there is no running water, you know, you need to talk differently, you know, about issues of sanitation and things like those. So I'm just saying, messaging that is relevant to the target audience, and preferably, like you said, using people who are prominent in those communities, who have got influence, and also those who have recovered from the illness, you know, to also be ambassadors of the message. Yeah.
Sure.
So what is the role yemibutho ke ngokwenzeka lo mbutho wakho omkhulu?
Yeah. You know, yeah, one of e-programs, Beskes as a runner up, and as you know that I am an RTT member, that is regional tasking member, who also sits, in fact, I am the convener of the health subcommittee, ANC in the region. We were fortunate to be given loud-hailing vans by the ANC provincial office, just specifically to pass the message that this is happening.
Okay,
my apologies. I even tried to change the position, but now issue here is that the ANC has had programs, to go out to Abantu with those loud-hailing events to spread the message of what needs to be done by our people, particularly kwezindawo ndithetha ngazo zingafikelelekiyo and zine-problem network and radio stations and so on. So I think
Imadok, we're not talking about Lamtimbi was a OR Tambo where to obile 3 million.
Yeah.
We're not talking about such things.
No. I think all these were above board. There are no door-to-doors bills. Yeah. So I think in this instance, it has assisted, in many areas, particularly in the Sinku and Elundini sub-regions. Yeah.
So can that best practice be transplanted then to other districts of of the province? Because the issue of a lack of awareness and the public health messaging that's not reaching, it needs people to be innovative using what's available. So maybe when you guys have covered your area, maybe that van with speakers can then move to Chris Hani, and move to Alfred Nzo and stuff like that.
Yeah, that is my understanding, Pele, that was going to be, the program organizing. So I think it's very important to understand it, from really what it was intended to achieve. Yes, our people really in the rural areas are challenged, information. But I think we have to make every means necessary to get information to those people. Okay. So yes, I think we've been trying to do that as the
lovely. Dr. Nokaga, we are wrapping up now.
Yeah, as we're wrapping up, talking about our ANC. It's important that as leaders now, we should forget other things as too. I want to shine, I want to learn. We should use all the resources that are available to make sure that we win this. This COVID, it's not about a person. It's not about, it should not be necessarily a stepping stone to better power. We should work hard and use people, whether he's aligned with you or not aligned with you, because all we need now is skills. Yes, I've had privilege that the Ortambo team, I've been in constant communication.
Our Billy training company,
I must confess, I've never been paid by government.
I'm being naughty, talk.
Salary.
You need permission to earn money outside of government.
Yes, except my salary. The issue is, ANC, we're here to help. We are here to help. We are doctors. We are professionals. We will never unseat your positions. But we need platforms for us to help our people. That's the message I'm passing.
OR Tambo district, but think and now you are here to dethrone them.
I mean, this is chairperson region. Ndiphinde ndibe plastic surgeon. It's going to be difficult for me, but I'm here to support, and I love my ANC. So I want to support the ANC without being looked at as an outsider or a person who want to unseat them in certain position. And above all, at the end of the day, we doctors have power, especially people who are in Medunsa. Abomfeku will tell you, if Umfeku says, please come and help me, all the doctors will go to Alwal North the following day at no cost, because we know each other personally. So we are having a resource that can be able to be utilized. But if we're given proper opportunity to mobilize and utilize and be respected, that's important. It's not about money. It's about resources.
Now, there's something I just need to point out to both of you gentlemen. About, let's say 6 weeks ago, I'm part of a grouping of healthcare professionals, doctors largely, that is advising the chairperson of the Solidarity Fund, who originates from Exendan. Now, as part of that grouping that meets every Friday, we've been looking at how do we help to support the province. And there are two things that we identified. That one, there needs to be some training or sensitization of healthcare professionals. I would say doctors, right? And so there's a program that is run every Thursday on a platform like this. Various professors from different parts of the country are organized to be able to give refreshers, with some CPT points. I think it's the fourth one last week that happened. And so if you guys are interested, because it's organized via a lady who is at Bishop as the person on the ground, but it's actually organized with Dr. Stembiso, Professor Stembiso Velapi, Dr. Tutula Balfo, all right? And they look at what are the needs in terms of information, and then they get an appropriate professor to then provide a webinar every Thursday. So that is for medical doctors. Every Thursday from around 6 p.m. to about 8 p.m. And then the other area we identified was the area around mass education. Mass education of Abantu, including civil servants who are non-healthcare workers. So that responsibility has been given to me and somebody else to work with community radio stations. So, and GCIS, Government Communication Information Service. So from time to time, I will ask, you guys, if maybe there is a community radio station in the Alwal North area and they have given us a slot, I will ask that you avail yourself to talk in the mother tongue. If it's around, the other day I was at UCR, which is UNITRA Community Radio.
Yes.
And the other day it was, Tanzania FM, and the other, so that's the side I'm driving, but also doing webinars for non-healthcare workers, via the same head office. So although we are in Gauteng, we are seeing how to support And in areas where we can support remotely via webinars, then we are doing that. But also kuma PPEs and everything, you know, we advocate for ipondo, you know, Pagla Solidarity Fund. So the point I'm trying to say is that whilst you are in the province, you are not alone, but you also need to talk so that we can see how to augment what is there. All right. So
you are going to be inundated by my calls since it's all well and good.
Okay, all right, no problem. Any responsibility in the is to look at the issue here, psychiatry and stuff, you know, the mental health stuff, you know, what are the needs in that side, you know, so that they can see, you know, how to support relevant programs that will support the healthcare workers, but also the people on the ground. Because as you know, psychiatric or mental health services, you know, are a challenge in the country as a whole. But we will talk outside of this thing. But I wanted to just say, where possible, you know, if we can use technologies like this one, it doesn't really cost me anything. It just costs me my time. But if it is used to actually ensure information dissemination, or when I'm une group of access at this thing, I can make it available to you and food is about ngayo. You're going to go daily up.
Okay.
So the point I'm trying to say is that let's see how we can support each other to be able to support the province. Any parting shot from each one of you? Then we're ready.
You know, Bele, I think, you know, let us not miss this opportunity that is presented by this pandemic to improve izinto throughout the country. And I would think that it is particularly important for Tina Upper Eastern Cape that we really, you know, look at how the department is actually, you know, able to, you know, deliver services. It's very important that we you know, I was also just thinking about, you know, the two sectors of private and public health sectors really having to collaborate, you know, meaningfully in trying to, you know, to work closer to one another. And in preparation, yes, for NHI, but also I think
Can I say something there?
Yes.
Can I just say something there? About 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
Because we've been agitating in that, you know, to the chairperson of the Solidarity Fund, Uguti, let's see how GPs can actually be part of a process. And you know, you have Discam testing people with the money that came from the Solidarity Fund, 20 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, Dr. Kanto was then tasked to talk to the independent practitioner associations throughout the country. How can they come up with a proposal that can be funded by Solidarity Fund that will help, you know, to relieve pressure by doing stuff at primary care level? Do you know what happened?
Yeah.
The formations of independent doctors,
IPAs, yes,
are not. They don't want to come on board. And the potential
but
there.
you must understand foods into abo. You know, the IPAs in the main, you know, if you check them historically, you'll find that it is mostly the comfortable white, unfortunately, sector of our.
These are the black groupings.
even when
Dokotela.
Nalapho Foods, if we are, the arrangement, the IPA, I don't belong to any IPA. And it was specifically because I found it problematic, IPAs at some stage.
Dokotela.
But I think that's a discussion for another day.
Yes,
But
okay.
I think most importantly, Foods, we need, to probably, move away from thinking that IPAs represent,
GPs.
GPs in the main. No.
Yeah. But then
yes,
there must be a solution. The point I'm leaving you with, we don't have the time now. Sorry, Doc. The point, I'm planting a seed, Doc. If anybody comes up with a creative idea,
sure,
around how doctors can be part of a solution in, especially in the underserved areas, that are largely rural, the chairperson of the Solidarity Fund is prepared to look for something that is viable, that makes sense. Just like Discam came up with an idea of how they will test people, away from his bedhead, obviously partially funded by them, So the point I'm trying to say is that doctors in private must also look at a model that makes sense, that would allow for them to be part of a solution, but the IPA so far have rejected anything that has to do with being a part of the solution. Dr. Noka.
I won't be long. My payoff line, Ben City, we are soldiers. I'm starting on something that I want doctors who understand that they are soldiers. We start with 1, 2, 3, and the IPA route might not work, but willing people to be soldiers are the ones who are going to start. It's difficult for these people to be convinced by probably you or by probably government officials, because one thing you're going to do,
this is independent of government. This is an initiative.
They want to confirm how much money am I getting on it. But we need each other to talk to our friends and say, let's start it. Money will come later.
I'm leaving you guys with that thing to say, how can you organize doctors and come up with a business model? I'm not going to call it business, but a model whereby just like Discam is doing now, they can be able to, for example, do testing, or whatever, but something that would relieve the pressure, because there's a pressure when it comes to testing. NHLS is choking, So, but the point here is that doctors also, I'm talking about now in the underserved areas, need to look at ways and means of how they can be part of a solution. And I don't expect you guys to give me an answer now, but I'm just saying that's a homework. And once you guys have an idea of how you can organize doctors to be part of that solution, I will link you with Dr. Kancho, who is the one who's been tasked to actually explore possibilities, so that good whatever can then be taken up and be considered by the Solidarity Fund, whether they can fund that or not, just like the Discam solution has been considered.
I will be in touch with you folks outside this platform, but these are the engagements that need to happen for us to improve this, particularly with space as Eastern Cape.
Yeah, because we need models that are going to work in a rural province, so that when this thing gets to other rural provinces, there is a model that works that can then be used there. But it's a lost opportunity now, when you guys are on the ground, but
we are supposedly refusing.
Yes.
No. But I will have to, follow it up with you outside.
I'm leaving it to both of you. I'm leaving it to
Yes.
both of you, because at least you, both of you, one is in public, one is in private, but put some creative ideas on how such can be done in a way that it makes sense. And I will link you with Dr. Kanjo, and Dr. Kanjo can then talk to the relevant people in terms of potential funding.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, thanks.
We've gone way past our time, guys. So thank you very much for availing yourselves. It's actually 2 hours. It was supposed to be 1 hour. So, but it just shows how much interesting the discussions were. But we also need to allow our viewers ukuthi bahamba bayokwenza ezinye izinto. So thank you very much, Dr. Nokaka and Dr. Titus, for availing yourselves. And I hope everyone who watched the whole thing or part of it, feel like COVID is not a death sentence, and it does not discriminate. You can be a doctor, you can be whatever, you can get it. But the good news is that
must not be stigmatized.
98% of people do recover. But you also don't want to be in that 2%. So as a country, we need to take this thing forward. So thank you very much to you guys, and thank you to all our viewers.
Thanks a lot, Doc.
All right. Thank you. Wena Dr. Nokaka unaso isithuko?
Nguduma uthombeni ulwandle ndabulela bhele lakuthi.
Hayi ke kulungile ke, hayi ubhele ulanga lokulunga kumnyama xa sikhona. Good
Wow.
night ke. Sharp.
Enkosi, good night.